For those of you who don't know, my name is Chris Twist. I have a TBI, traumatic brain injury, which happened 7 years ago. I had to relearn every single skill that I now have, including relearning the entire language of English called aphasia. And I am talking with different people about different thoughts about mental health and what mental health means to them and how it can help all of us. And so I'm talking with Ben Curtis, who I love his new podcast, which is called Dude, you're going well. I'm sorry, what is it?
Dude, you're getting well.
That's it. I'm sorry. That's
it's all good. It's based on my tagline as the Dell spokesperson. Dude, you're getting a Dell. So I'm really committed to wellness today, and I'm love that you love this podcast. And I'm so honored, Chris, to be your very first guest on your show. So thank you so much for having me.
I want to connect with people like you, therapists and life coaches, who are more interested in a rationalized version of help.
Yeah.
I'm a very, very rationalized person. Which is actually, it can be super useful and can also be a problem because I'm sometimes not connected enough with my guts.
Yeah, over rationalizing. Too much in this mind and not enough in that one, right?
Yeah, so like it can go both ways.
Yes, I understand.
So my first question is, do you personally have any history using natural pills, powders, teas, or vitamins? And if so, can you tell me about them?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting question. I'm actually curious what has you ask that question.
After my TBI, my anxiety was really high. I had OCD before my TBI, but it got a lot stronger, much bigger part of my life, right? And so I started with a medical anxiety pill that I then learned was a very addictive pill. And I started getting away from it and replacing it with passion flower, which is an herb.
That's so cool. I haven't heard about passion flower used for anxiety before.
Yep. I use it for two reasons. One, for anxiety, and also together with my medical pills, I have not... passion flower is very useful for seizures, which has happened to me a couple times after my TBI. And because of my medical pills connected with my passion flower herb, I have not had a seizure for about 4 years.
Wow, that's so cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing, because I was like, whoa, that question was kind of out of the blue after knowing who you are. So I really appreciate knowing.
Yeah.
So do I use any in my life? I actually do. I was after September 11th, well, first of all, let me tell you, I've taken a lot of different kinds of antidepressants, anti-anxiety, antipsychotics, natural medicine, herbs, roots, all kinds of things. And to this day, currently I have one small tiny prescription medication that has been really useful for me and replenishing some of the dopamine that I've lost in side of my trauma and reprogramming my brain with natural things like meditation, sound healing, my own voice, creativity, passion, play, doing what I love. And then I currently also use some different kinds of mushrooms and powders in purely mushroom form. So really, aside from that prescription, I only take natural things, and I always run them by a professional. And so there's occasional vitamins, depending on what my body's dealing with or telling me, or what I'm eating that week, or what I might be fighting or not, that I'll use to enhance those. But I'm a big believer in fungi and the mycelium of the world. And it's really important. We are connected and using spores constantly. So I've been getting more interested in some of that. And occasionally, I take the basics when I'm not feeling well. Like I always go to garlic, ginger, turmeric, vitamin C, zinc. I love, I don't love it, but there's another root that I will take when I'm not feeling well. That's really, really oil of oregano that can be really, really powerful. In powder form, especially, it's better for us. It can be really hard on your intestinal lining. In oil form, if you buy it, it's always good to mix it with stuff. So powder form is really, really good. So there's some incredible naturopath. I've worked with Chinese medicine doctors, naturopath medicine doctors, and I got off pharmaceuticals after being on 3 or 4 things, like you said, one of which was highly addictive. Xanax, Klonopin. I was on also at the same time Wellbutrin and Zoloft. And then at some point, because of my PTSD and nightmares I was having, I was also given something that started with an S that was an antipsychotic, and that just had me black out and scare the crap out of me. So I immediately stopped using that. Yeah. And then I learned about the addictive nature. And then I already had addictive tendencies of self-medicating that I fell into through drugs and alcohol. And so about 9 years ago, I put all of those down. I went into 12-step recovery and therapy, and I put a lot of those substances down, and I learned just how addictive so many of these pharmaceuticals are today. And I wish there was like more study about psilocybin, so that we could be taking that like prescribed by a doctor. We're just not quite there with the science, but I really believe more and more, and you are what you eat. So I also believe I eat really, really good whole foods. I believe in whole foods. I'll have smoothies, but I try not to have so many powders and additives and things, and just and extra stuff I put in. I mean, like I'll add like spirulina or something fun and extra once in a while, but I really try to have whole foods that I chew and use my body's natural resources. So that was a long answer to your question, but I wanted to take you through the history of what I've been through. And when I got sober, I didn't need all the pharmaceutical stuff, because I just needed to quit poisoning myself and take better care. And suddenly I got better, and suddenly the medications worked better. And I do believe in the power of certain medication to help reset us, if we're in a state of suicidal or depression or chemical, dependency that we can't break. But things like plant medicine and ayahuasca and supervised, like with MDMA or ketamine therapy, there's a lot of incredible therapies that are using natural elements.
I've read a little bit about LSDs. Very small amounts, very, very small amounts have really helped people who might have like PTSD or certain trauma.
Yeah, and LSD has been government approved now, but only in certain trials and with certain people. But that's definitely helpful for PTSD.
I'm not sure because I have my own PTSD from certain things, but I'm not sure if I could do it, because I have OCD, which used to be way worse than it is, because I've been learning about cognitive behavior therapy and how to really manage that, and that's great. but it is still like there's some core thoughts that I can't really get away from so far. And control is one of those core thoughts.
You're not alone. A lot of humans struggle with that.
That's like a lot of OCD comes from that.
And yes, and it's displaced energy too, Chris, because we create patterns to help us feel safe. And so if we don't feel safe, that's when heightened anxiety comes. And anxiety, really, if we break it down, if we take all the woo-woo and meaning out of it, what's happening, we take the human out of it. We just look at it scientifically. Our nervous systems are activated. Certain parts of our amygdala and the perineum, there's things that are firing. The fight or flight is firing. But it's may not be appropriate anymore. It may be based on how we were raised or a traumatic event that happened. And trauma can just be as simple as, an extreme change in energy or an event that you witness or someone in your life witnesses, right? And those things can really disrupt brain patterns. But like you've proven, it's so beautiful. You're a living example of neuroplasticity, that we can change these brain patterns. And I know a man who couldn't stop doing heroin. He could not stop. He had kids, a family. He was a healer. He kept relapsing. And he went and he turned his life over to shamans in Peru, to proper medicine doctors who took care of him and taught him the ways of ayahuasca and the grandmother and the native traditions. And he broke the spell through that, and now carries that healing on, has been passed on down to him, and he carries it on to other people now as a shaman. And in the Peruvian tradition, in the Lakota traditions as well. And so there's been profound change just from plant medicine and reprogramming those things and unlearning or retraining our brains, right? And accessing new pathways. But I definitely don't recommend just going out. And if you're interested in exploring plant medicine, definitely do it with people who have a lot of experience in it, people who have been trained and deemed to do this, people who know how to hold safe space before, during, and after.
Yes.
People who know how to tell you how to prepare your body for this, because it's not something you just add in. Like you actually, there's diets to prepare for it. There's things like it doesn't mix well with cannabis. So if you use CBD or cannabis in your life, there's actually a process to go into plant medicine. You can actually receive it. And then there's aftermath, right? There's the time you want to take care of and process after, and know that you have the care and the safe environment to be cared for. So there's a lot of people just going out and being like, hey, come have a breakthrough with us dudes and do ayahuasca. It's not that simple, right? And not one time even changes everything. It's about reprogramming over time. So I just wanted to say that for what it's worth, for the people out there who are hip and getting into the idea of plant medicine, to be responsible.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in for both my medical bills that I need to live well, and my herbs and my natural pills, powders, and teas that I use. I will always, before I do anything, I will read reviews and also articles about the side effects. What are
very important? And if you're on medication,
what are the side effects that I might have? What could
if you're on prescription medication for depression, for anxiety, or anything, actually, a lot of plant medicine, you shouldn't be doing psilocybin or microdosing or introducing ayahuasca or things into also pharmaceutical, because you start to play with your brain chemicals and you can get over dopamine. You can actually you can do harm to your body. So it's really important to do the research. That's why you don't just jump into a weekend. Like, has anyone asked you what kind of medications or medical history you have, or if you have a history of psychosis, or if you have a history of mental illness? Do they know how to take care of you if a trauma comes up? Like, it's really important to be with trauma-informed coaches and trauma-informed therapists and trauma-informed shamans, because there's a lot of people out there who will just welcome anything, but they don't actually know how to handle the space. So be sure you're investing. As a coach, I can't say it enough, and a healer, to invest in people who know what they're doing.
I definitely think
do your research.
I definitely think that in the culture that we're in, we want to just solve the problem. Just solve, whatever the problem is. Anxiety, you're depressed, or you're not getting enough of something.
Yeah, take a pill, have this, feel this way.
We solve the problem. Solve the problem.
Instant fix. Yeah.
And the lack of rationalizing that need does not make you stronger. It's not like I'm a big believer in just slowing down your brain. We have so many thoughts, and we have these thoughts coming from the world into our brains too. So it's not so internal; it's also the outside.
Yes.
And there's so much of it, and just slow down your.
Yes, I'm such a champion for that. I'm so glad you did that. I want to tell you, I get paid larger amounts of money than other things to help corporations and people in corporations slow down, to teach them productivity and success through stillness, through monotasking. Multitasking and being proud of it is actually not a good thing. It's proving that, yeah, you might be able to juggle a lot of things, but your mind can only select one thing at a time in that way. And you're actually dividing your attention more. Even someone who drives home on the phone statistically takes longer to get home than if the exact same person drove home not on the phone, only because our attention is divided. And so imagine if it's that divided just from that thing, and you're on the phone and you're listening to this and you're doing that. And music can actually be helpful, right? Humming, sound, vibration can be helpful. But when you're divided between too many things, it's actually better to do many things for a short amount of time also than try to take on a huge thing. But in the world of hyper productivity, and we're being trained on our cell phones and ding and pop and boom and multiple windows and screens and lights, and I can fix myself, self-help on an app, and a pill will do this. Wow. You know why we're the only country that has all this gun violence? Because we do not take care of our mental illness. We do not take care of our mental health or wellness.
I definitely think that this now kind of culture that we're in, it's kind of asking us to, how do I say this? It takes me a minute to say things correctly sometimes.
Time. Here's for slowing down, Chris.
Slow down my brain, Chris. Slow down.
That was my point too. It was just really the power of slowing down and actually listening, because you have your own. Everybody has the wisdom and medicine they need inside of them. If we just slow down enough to listen to it, to trust our gut, right? Our gut is so much wiser than even our brain. Sorry, this is the last thing I want to say, Chris.
Okay.
Our gut is wiser than our brain. Our heart is even wiser than that. And we practice developing this, but imagine if we spent the amount of hours in school developing our hearts, developing our gut, listening to our bodies, our relationships with each other. Think about what would be possible in the world then.
I have a thought about that. So I use, and this is actually one of my questions for you, so we'll start with this. Do you ever use personality tests? And if so, tell me about them.
Maybe in the past. I love astrology. I definitely have never completely fallen under any one thing I've read. No one thing has nailed me. I'm a Scorpio, like to the T, and the year of the monkey. That resonates with me. But Scorpio, I am not a vengeful person. I've never been. I am not a highly secretive person. I've never sought to be, maybe as a child, but these things that are put on us, the personality test, we're looking for boxes, and we're looking for things that say, I am this, but you are no stuck thing. So I've enjoyed taking personality tests to maybe learn something about myself. But the best way I can learn something about myself is by interacting with other people and then listening, slowing down, actually asking myself, what do I want in me? Checking in with my body, my gut, my heart. So I don't really subscribe to them anymore because I believe that people have their own personal wisdom beyond infinite. Like, we've been given gifts through energy, through generations. There's so much wisdom inside of us that we can practice if we took more time to sit and listen to our own wisdom, to our own, like out of our heads. Like, it's not about your personality. It's about what matters to you, and the actions you're taking and the care that you're giving yourself. Like, we can take personality tests, but are you taking a self-care test? I mean, that's what I'm interested in my life today, really, self-care tests. I would love for everyone here. Maybe that's what I'm going to make when we're done. I'm going to make like a self-care test. First thing to pop up on my website. Like, when's the last time you slowed down, drank water, asked for a hug, received a hug,
Okay.
asked for help.
Now, my next question is, as a life coach, have you ever helped a person by helping them with a natural pill, powder, tea, or vitamin? Being a part of that.
It's a good question. Have I? No. I coach people on listening to their own body, and I will refer someone to, if there's someone who I believe might benefit from plant medicine and it might be a safe and proper thing for them. If I believe that, then I will maybe refer them to a shaman or refer them to a proper expert in that field that I know and personally have experienced and trusted. But most of the time, I really coach people on finding their own tools and I offer tools, but I don't offer those things. But I do ask people about their diet and their connection to nature and their connection to their food and their connection to themselves. So, if there's things that are soothing, like tea, I dated a British person for a long time, and I got really into tea, and I traveled to China and I got really into tea, and there would just be flowers in the water in China. It wasn't like these tea bags and these packaged things. And I have so many friends, like my best friend, Anise Labrum from Las Vegas. She had severe kidney stones and infections her whole life. And I remember drinking dandelion tea and eating dandelion roots and things that were good for her body rather than just taking a lot of medications. And when she got off medications and started using plants as more of a diet and medicine, she got so much better. It was incredible.
I'm a big drinker of chamomile.
Beautiful. I love chamomile.
I love chamomile so much.
Oh, and that's beautiful.
There's a sleeping tea that uses passiflora and chamomile, and but they 4 other herb ingredients. It's called Hey Girl, and they use that usually daily.
I love it. I love the name too. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I used to know the name of every single root. In fact, I was helped for a long time. There's a root mixture I was given that was a really great root for anxiety and relaxation, and it's in some teas. Relaxation teas, and I can't think of what it is. And it's not, and kava can be one of the things for relaxation, but that you have to regulate as well. And then, here's one powder I've tried that I want to talk about really quickly. May I?
Yeah, of course.
Kratom or kratom, however you say it.
Okay.
So This is available, accessible everywhere in stores, everywhere, gas stations, you name it. It's become a hype because, and it was illegal in many states because it is highly, highly addictive. I have friends who have been opioid addicts, heroin addicts, cigarette smokers. They said nothing has been harder to get off than kratom. So I just want to say that as a warning to people. I've used it once or twice because a friend suggested it to me for depression. It's been used to help people get off of opioids. It's been used for PTSD people, but if it's used with guidance, and now when it's sold over the market, what happens is it also plays with brain chemistry. It starts to replace dopamine. Your body becomes highly dependent on it, and it needs more and more over time. And it can become very dangerous and very hard to get off. The withdrawals can be worse than heroin withdrawals if you use it daily. So I just want to say that to anyone who is using it or who's interested in it, just to, again, be really cautious with things.
Yeah, that kind
be
of
really
stuff.
mindful, and not all that stuff is great for us. Listen to your body, and also before you take any of these things, look at why you're putting it in your body. What are you hoping to achieve? And is this short term or long term? Right? So if it's anxiety, like, there's no simple fix, but you can actually start to treat that through exposure therapy, through cold showers in the morning, through reprogramming your brain through meditation and breath work.
I read a bit about the cold shower.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, that sounds like a great idea. I'm not going to do it, but it sounds great.
Yeah, I heard about it because I was a fun follower of Goop for a little while, Gwyneth Paltrow's thing. I just thought it was funny and cute. It was a nice break from Ozark and all the intense, traumatizing shows out there that make your nervous system go, ah! Like, I also practice watching TV that's like joyful and like nature stuff and positive things.
After my TBI, I was in a dark place. I mean, I didn't have a single skill. I couldn't really walk. I couldn't use my arms, really. I had to relearn that as well. I didn't have any of the skills, photography, music. I didn't have any of those skills. I had to relearn every single skill. And it's very hard in that first year. I was in a dark place. And the only thing I would watch were funny shows, comedy. It was the only thing I wanted to watch.
Yeah. And it
actually helped. It helped a lot.
Oh man, that's beautiful. Yeah, I'm a big believer in that. And I'll never forget this. So thank you for saying that. And also, so with this episode of Goop, like Gwyneth Paltrow's, her group went to see what's the guy, the big breathwork guy that's so famous now. Can't think of him. Anyway, everybody does like his breathwork. He's like this Swedish Nordic dude, jumps in Iceland maybe, and jumps in cold water a lot. I'll think of it in a second. But basically he just is using exposure therapy and breath work. And so he gets in cold water. It's really healthy. It's an old ancient tradition. No surprise. It's always worked. So we're going back to those ancient traditions that always work, that we're so removed from because of technology. We have to pay someone thousands of dollars to fly across the world to go jump in some cold water. Long story short, one of the women who was the interns had severe postpartum depression, anxiety, panic attacks, almost daily, if not weekly. And after going through this experience, she started taking cold baths, freezing cold baths, ice baths, I think. And her anxiety, her panic attacks stopped completely. And it was a period right at the beginning of pandemic. And my nervous system I was waking up with it highly charged. And overreacted, and I was experiencing what felt like anxiety attacks every morning. And I was like, just ready to try anything. I was running, I was exercising, I was breathing, I was meditating, I was communicating, I was getting help. Like nothing was making a difference. I was sitting with it, like everything. I started taking cold showers, just made it 30 seconds and then worked my way up to 2 minutes. And that's 30 seconds is honestly just like 20 breaths, really. And I would do that, or 15 good breaths, like 1, 2, and before I know it, I was waking up without those feelings anymore. My body was like much calmer, much better in the morning. So I was like, it worked. And now my body actually craves it. Even in the winter, it's a little challenging in the winter, but I did it this whole winter and I feel so much better for it. And it changes your brain. So anything that changes your brain pattern, that practices using different things, gets you into your body and makes you deal with your breath. You're like, oh my God, you're like, and your breathing gets shallow. It has you drop into your breath, get deep, slow down when you're feeling panic. And it actually retrains your body and nervous system to be able to handle more stress. And I'm building a body. You can build a body to handle these things. You can retrain your body to do that. And I help that with all my clients, everybody I work on that with, including myself.
When you're talking of breathing, every good meditation that I've ever tried in YouTube, and there's one especially that I, as someone with OCD, and I also have bipolar, which I've really worked on how to manage. They all talk about just slow breathing, just deep, let it stay in your lungs for a couple seconds, and then slowly, like everything is slow. Slow is good.
And as you do that, as a yoga teacher and a singer and a band too, like the more you slow down, your breath can get just huge and bigger and bigger and bigger. Like how people hold their breath, they practice. And the ancient yogis used to say, we have a limited amount of breaths per life. So the slower you breathe, the longer you will live. So consider if you're always like, and you're always in a heightened state where I got to move. It actually creates stress, and stress can be good. There's eustress that is positive, but mostly when you're creating distress, dis-ease, it's not good for your body. So that practice of slowing down, slowing the breath immediately trains the brain to get out of the head, into the body, to slow, to breathe, to practice, to pause, to find maybe a new way. And maybe we can live a little longer, right? And even inside of that space, things can rise. But also if you're tense and you don't want to feel emotion, and I learned this in acting too, as an actor, like it's actually when you breathe and relax, that emotion can release so much quicker. When you hold on to it and you try to stuff it down, it actually gets deeper and it actually can get stronger. So it's about really slowing down. And I'm so grateful that we're talking about that. I even practice pausing when I speak sometimes, and you're helping to remind me of that.
I cannot promote slower thinking enough. I cannot. Before my TBI, I was just so bipolar crazy as I could ever been. Like I'm trying to not use bad words, but they are the words that are in my brain right now. But it was all reactions to get the dopamine, to get that.
Yeah.
Get it.
Yeah, when you were manic, when you were up.
Yeah, dude, do that stupid thing that's gonna, make your life so terrible. Just the dopamine now.
Yeah.
And I think that the thing that has helped me the most is how to detach from my thoughts, behaviors, and feelings. And when you are detached, they don't have to be true. You don't even have to use them. They're the river of thoughts, they're the rivers that come, they leave. You can actually pretty much consciously choose which thoughts you use. You may not
with practice.
Yeah. I mean, there's not a way that I'm aware of to control the actual thoughts that you might have, but you can always choose which ones you use. But that's just being more consciously aware of what's happening and less automatical thinking.
Yeah. And Chris, thank you for speaking about your bipolar disorder as well. I have actually, I would say probably over 70% of my clients, 70% of the men I've worked with have happened to have had bipolar. Many of my closest friends have been diagnosed that way. Some people say it's like a hyperdiagnosis, but I believe if something like a diagnosis can give you some structure and framework, some patterns, like, hey, we've noticed these things, and it can actually help set you free, learning about these patterns and learning about these sides of yourself, and get medication that actually can help properly balance you so that you can actually function in life, right? That these things are a gift. And it starts with taking the stigma out and honoring your truth and talking about it. So Chris, thank you so much for talking about it, because I tag BPD on most of my posts because I welcome people who have a diagnosis. I welcome people who have been told that they're different or think that they're unwell. Most of the bipolar individuals, most of the individuals I know who have received that diagnosis are by far the most beautiful, huge, loving, brilliant souls. Just brilliant and so tapped in. And I wonder on so many levels that it's like, well, how do you fit into society? And what happens when you shut down, though? And the kind of support you need then, right?
Well, and here's the other thing. The manic feeling is also incorrect. It's not just the depression part that's a problem. When you are manic, you are less logic, reality, facts, which are 3 words that I use personally daily.
Say those 3 words again.
Logic, reality, and facts.
Okay.
Helps me to detach.
Detach from the thinking, from the obsessive thinking, right?
So if I have a thought that, this song is the best song ever made, and everyone's going to love my song, and be like, oh my God, I can't believe that he made that. That's manic thinking. And it's not actually very useful. In fact, it's quite not useful. So I'm going to say that. So I do have an interesting question for you. As a career coach and a resume writer, this is one of the questions I have for anybody I ever talk with.
Sure.
And that is, give me a new skill that you have, why you learned this skill, and what is this new skill giving you?
All right.
It's some deep shit, I know.
No, I love this, Chris. I've got I already have 3. I'm like, which one am I going to give him?
Give me all of them. It's fine. It's fine. I don't want to be stressful.
The 3 newest skills that I'm developing that come to mind is radical honesty.
To you.
Myself and other people. And really an old one that I've redeveloped, and vulnerability. And that's what I mean by honesty too, like letting myself be seen. Practice being seen, practice putting myself out there, practice sharing my real truth, my real feelings. Like I make posts when I'm crying. I don't just make posts when I'm happy. I make posts about feelings and pain and reality. So I believe in that. So that's like a superpower I'm developing now. And then the newest one that is an old thing I learned, but I'm practicing it totally newly, is boundaries. And
I cannot tell you how much of a believer in boundaries. I have a lot of walls. I have walls between me and just about everything in the world except for 6, which is my cat, my daughter, and my husband. But the rest of the world, there are walls.
Mm-hmm. And there can be, yeah.
They're not. They're useful walls, and they are flexible, and they can come further or farther from me or closer to me, depending on what is needed. But they are there, so I can always remember that I can go back to them if I have to.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. And I really didn't have the vocabulary boundaries, and I didn't really have the word boundaries in my vocabulary until about 10 years ago. I feel like I could have had to learn that newly. And it's when I kept having failed relationships and I was giving away my power so much to other people, and I was looking for other people to save me, and I was people pleasing, and I was saying yes to everything, everyone and everywhere. And yet really not treating myself well. And really what was happening is I was spreading myself more and more thin. I was making more and more unhealthy actions. And also I was holding on to friends and people for the wrong reasons. So one of the boundaries I created, about like stopping putting drugs and alcohol in my body is self-harm. And as I stopped self-harming myself, I actually received a lot more love in my life. And then as that next boundary happens, like, breaking codependency. And I've had to actually do that, learn that in a relationship, in marriage. And it's so much tougher in relationship, but it happens. You have to practice it with someone else. Right. And we have relationships with everything. So it's in order to slow down, Ben. To have healthy relationships and practice healthy boundaries. And one of those has been, I had a year of saying no, of saying yes to myself, putting myself first, like practicing self-care first. And
there definitely is a version of that is different from being narcissistic. Like they're not the same.
Well, even now as a coach, the more quote unquote successful I get, or the more people who come into my circle, the more people I reach or help, the more energy I take on. I've always been very sensitive and intuitive, and I believe we all are. Some of us have just been very removed from it, or have put up walls to actually no longer see it or know that we are. And so it's about slowly finding safe spaces where we can access these spaces, these places, and these tools and gifts in ourselves. So, I can take on a lot of energy, and I could take on other people's energy. And when I started working with people more and more, I actually started to see a healer, a coach friend of mine, Daniel Tuttle, we now work together. But I started to see him to help me protect my energy from taking on what didn't actually belong to me, which was generations of programming of like, those boxes we put ourselves in, or our families put ourselves in, or the ways we've learned to protect ourselves or stay safe or taught who we are, right? To learning to break those down and actually show up for ourselves first. And one of my favorite tools of accessing boundaries is asking questions. And one of the questions I love to ask is, who does this belong to? And then my favorite part, return to sender. It's like, return to sender, not mine. And even when your partner's yelling at you and you notice yourself getting defensive, or someone's doing something, or you're experiencing being shamed or attacked, ask yourself first, before you try to defend yourself, who does this belong to? Because you may actually be defending something that's not even yours. And one of the greatest accesses to getting to that is, how does this feel? How does this make you feel? And then sometimes I'll even ask my partner, like, it sounds like you're really upset right now. How are you feeling? And that also can take it off. But having healthy boundaries is good. And then also noticing where you put up walls to protect yourself from perceived threats that aren't actually real. And so can we practice putting ourselves in spaces and practice allowing ourselves to be vulnerable and seen, and know that we're not going to die.
It's a very difficult one.
We're actually leading by example. And the more, it is, Chris. Sorry, this is the last thing I want to say. And the more that you practice leading with your truth and your heart and your vulnerability and whatever disorder you've been told, and leading with your truth, the more you open the door for others to do the same. And that's what I think this society needs more of. And men need more permission and examples of vulnerability, honesty, softness, love, tenderness, and compassion.
I think that we tell men something that is one of the most unhealthy things that they start learning as children. And it becomes their subconscious, and then their automatic reactions to things is, you should isolate yourself.
Yeah, to like man up and do this alone, like bear this down, like go deal with it.
The idea of choosing to isolate yourself ends terribly just about every time. Like, I don't know when it makes your life better.
We're built for connection. There's no doubt that humans who own animals live longer. Why? Because they have a being that they're connecting with. And unlike other animals, I believe we've been given extra emotions, the fun ones and the not so fun ones, the painful and the joyful ones, because we are built to experience love and connection. And one of the reasons I believe this world is suffering so much right now from violence, from hatred, is because we are so disconnected from loving ourselves. I'm the son of a preacher, but for Christians to practice a life and I grew up in church, right? But to say like, to love thy neighbor, and then to go say, well, you're not allowed to say gay, or love thy neighbor, but I'm going to kill all of you because you don't believe the way we do, or you want a different president. Love thy neighbor, or F you to this certain president, right? And hanging flags with violent language and violent communication. What is that teaching our children? That it is okay to hate, be violent, and angry. And that is the most profitable emotion to date. People are making money off of your anger and polarity thinking, and you're being fed news and media. So are we actually stopping and practicing these principles in all our affairs? I believe if Jesus were alive today, he'd be loving everyone that believes differently from him, looks differently from him, loves differently from him.
It's funny that you're talking about this because I have 4 singles of my music that are up.
Oh, Chris, I want to hear it. All right, good to know.
And I have a 5th single that I'm working on now. And the title of the song is Against Gods. So that I think would be an interesting talk for us to have in the future.
Yes. Well, I want to say something really quick because my father passed away and he was my best friend and he was one of my greatest teachers. And he said, I believe, and my dad was a theologian scholar, and he has a doctorate in theology, and he studied Judaism and Muslim traditions. He put me in a school that honored all religions. He raised me in a church, but he taught me about other people, and he encouraged me to go to synagogue. He encouraged me to have friends that thought and looked differently from me. My father, at age 50, finally was able to come out, face his sexuality, be the first openly gay minister in the South, and still teach that God could love you no matter who you are and what you look like. And this was in the 90s, and so I just was given, a gift. My father even said to a kid who committed suicide at our high school that our God is a loving God and he believes he's loving this person still today. And, we had these fundamentalist quote unquote Christians in our school march out and say that's blasphemism. If someone kills himself, like they're going to hell. Well, if they did, they probably didn't feel like they had an out, or they didn't have a safe place in this world, or they didn't have any connection to God or humans or love. They did not experience love, right? So who are we to judge, right? We need to continue loving people. So I just really believe in, this is not a sermon. This is just to say, I believe in the power of love always is the greatest thing. And if for me, if there's a question of God, it's love. And that's where we need to nurture as a nation, as a society, to love ourselves, our planet, and each other. And that's how we can restore this world.
Been loving this talk so far. Personally, just who I am. I know you're talking about how God is there for everybody. I have no interest in having any relationship with him or her or it, whatever it is. Leave me alone completely. And even the song, I talk about that. But like,
I don't think I said God is there for everybody. I don't think I said that word, but I was talking about it.
The exact word, but that kind of thought.
Yeah, well, I mean, I want to be careful for our words. I believe that you can believe whatever you want. And I just said my father said God was a loving God and loved all people if you believe in God.
Okay.
But I want to say also, like, to love, just, he taught to love, that's what we're here to do for each other, whether you believe in a God or not, or whatever God means to you. And, you know, I used to love it in 12-step programs. Even atheists in this programs be like, I can't get sober because it's a Christian program. It's not. It even says, like, God as we understand him. So God could be the great outdoors. It could be a group of drunks. It could be any power greater than ourselves that gives you source or inspiration. And so that's what I'm saying. And that's where I'm speaking from.
The reason why I made this song is because I am truly agnostic, which means I'm not really sure. However, I would rather be an atheist. I just don't have the confidence needed.
Or do you? Who does that belong to? Where do you have that thought that you don't have the confidence? Who told you that?
I said that to myself. But this would be a great talk in maybe one of your podcasts in the future.
Yeah, I mean, we're going a very different direction as far as getting into this, but I just think it's important right now, if we're like, this is the state of the world we're in and people are killing each other over this stuff, to just, I believe in instilling as much message of love as we can. And slowing down, taking time for our wellness is one of the most loving gifts that we can give ourselves, our family, our relationships, and the whole world. If you want to know what to do about the world or climate change, start with yourself. Start with your home.
One of the things about what you're saying I quite like is that when we have a habit of trying to change the entire world at the same time, right? And I am a big believer in starting internally with yourself. And then when you're strong and open to the people around you, and then if that is strong, then you go even opener, and you maybe like your whole city or your whole town. And then we start from us and we slowly open from there. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
So I have one more question for you.
Okay. Perfect. And then I've got to run because I'm actually leading my Lion's Den, my men's group coaching program tonight, our last one of the season.
Sounds great. My last question is, tell me about your habits.
Well, that could be a whole episode just on that.
This is true.
Any specific habits you want to know about? Any area of my life?
Like a habit you have every day. Give me just one habit.
Positive or negative?
You choose.
All right. Here's a positive habit I have every day. So I'm a dreamer. I work a lot of things out in my dreams. I travel in my dreams. I work out trauma in my dreams. And so my dreams can very much affect my waking life. And so one of the habits I have, on top of cold showers every morning for at least 30 seconds, is when I wake up, I take a moment to process, to listen to my thinking in my body. And sometimes I remember my dreams, sometimes I don't, but I can kind of feel what's going on. And rather than like freaking out or needing to go fix things, I do something that was taught to me from a veteran who had PTSD and PTSD reprogramming and neurological reprogramming. I've done a lot of training in that too, and experience in it. And one of those things is reframing. And it's a really simple concept you can use in all areas of your life and wellness, but specifically around dreams. If you have a traumatic vision in your mind, you actually recreate it, but with a positive outcome. So I'll give you a good example. So after 9/11, because I lived in ground zero before, during, and after that time, and I was completely exposed to within 100 yards of the entire September 11th attacks, and the trauma thereafter, I would have these dreams of like tidal waves coming over New York, coming over me and destroying everything, and helicopters in World War III and stuff. And they became repetitive. So I practiced this. I remembered it. Oh, someone taught me this once. I could reprogram this in a positive way. And so when I would think about the wave coming, and then I just see this friendly dolphin jump out and be like, "Come on, buddy, hop on my back." And like, we'd like ride off into the sunset. And it was cute. Like, it started to reprogram that for me, so that it wasn't always this horrible thing, but I could start to rethink through something. And sometimes I would use tapping while I'm doing that, or breath. And then whether or not it's effective, I let it go and I go move on about my day. So at least I'm practicing doing some reframing. And that's been really helpful for me. And if I haven't done that, I at least try to spend 5 to 10 minutes sitting in quiet and think about how I'm feeling. And I reprogram, think about the intention I want to have for the day and what that would look like in my life and in my body. So there's some little period of reset I practice in my morning every day. And when I don't, it really, like, that can become a negative habit, not doing it. And then those days add up. And then suddenly, like, my wife and I have a meltdown, and I'm like, oh, right, I'm reacting to something that she's telling, because I haven't practiced taking care of myself or self-soothing. So those little things are a way I do it. That's one long answer, but a short positive habit.
I love
reframing.
It makes me think about that in CBT, cognitive behavior therapy. One of the things they show you is that, one thought, different people can have different feelings about the same thought.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so sometimes I feel really stressed because I'm doing more work and more jobs than I've ever done after my TBI. It's very stressful. And I'm like, can I really do all this? However, a different person can say to the same thought, oh man, it's great with how much I'm doing. Look at this. You totally have. So like I can always change my feelings about the thought itself.
Yeah, you can reframe. Yeah, that's really great. I love that. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me on here,
thank
Chris.
You so much. I'm hoping that we can do this again.
Well, it would be an honor. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who's listening. And I hope I've made an impact or somewhat of value in your life. And if you want to get hold of me, you can shoot me a message on Instagram, Ben Curtis Official. And it has my link in there in the bio, or anywhere on Facebook or YouTube, Ben Curtis. And you can see a link to like book a call with me, a coaching call, learn more about my Lion's Den. My podcast, Dude, You're Getting Well, which just launched yesterday.
And it's amazing.
Thank you so much. Or just send a note. I love to hear from people, and I love to know how I could support you. And mostly, if you're listening today, acknowledge yourself for taking the time for your well-being, and know that you don't have to ever do it alone. And there's nothing wrong with you. You just may need a little extra support and love. So if no one told you they love you today, I love you. You have my permission to ask for help and go get what you need. And remember that you yourself also have so much love in medicine. And so the reminder to slow down, to breathe, and to love.
Okay. Well, bye and have a great day.
Thank you so much, Chris. It was great connecting with you, and stay in touch with me for sure. I'll may I put you on my mailing list as well?
Sure. Okay,
cool. And I'll send you some information about the Lion's Den, because we're starting one very soon, and it'd be really cool to have you involved if you're interested.
I would love to try.
All right. Well, have a beautiful day, and tag me. Let me know when this is posted and where. And I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you. And hey, I acknowledge you for going for it. For your first one, you did it. Yes. Yeah. Fuck yeah. Congratulations. I'm a big advocate of celebrating as well. So that's awesome.
I'm a big believer.
Celebrating you.
I'm a big believer in being as happy as you can with small wins.
Yeah.
Don't wait until the big win. Be happy. It's about being happy with the journey.
Amen. Yes. Well, enjoy the journey. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Take care, Chris. Bye-bye.